has all these informational panels that tell about the Shroud of Turin. And it's just a small fraction of what we know and what people have learned over the years about the Shroud.
Did you see the real thing?
I have not yet. Oh, well, I've seen it, but it was in a case covered because it is not displayed very often.
Right. Do they have those displays in Turin just for some special occasions or
They
once a
do.
year? Or
Yeah.
how does it work?
So the last time was 2015. And they had hoped to have it displayed in last year for the Jubilee year in 2025, but they did not display it. So the next time that they hope to display it is 2033, which will be 2,000 years since the Passion, Death, and Resurrection of Jesus.
But it's not on display in the church in Turin, no.
It is, but it's covered. So you can pray in front of it and be close to it, but they don't expose it to light and air. So they're trying to protect it as much as possible. And then what they're doing now is they're working on a way to display it so that many people can get through, but they can leave it flat and folks can see it without putting stress on the cloth. Yeah. So this is what the shroud looks like. So it is a long cloth that usually surprises people that it is so very long because it's about 14 feet long.
This is exact size, right?
It is. This is the size. And it has the back image and the front image of a crucified man. And so what we think happened was the body was laid on this end, and this is the back of the head, so it laid face up here, and then this side of the cloth was pulled over the top.
So they didn't wrap the person this way.
Right, they didn't wrap him sideways, they wrapped him long ways.
Huh.
Yes.
So that's something new. Okay.
And it took more linen, right?
That's right.
It took a bigger piece of cloth to do that.
Right.
But that's the way that it was wrapped. And then there probably would have been a strip wrapped around to help keep it closed. And there's pictures of that you can see on some of the panels. So medical folks who have looked at this say that this is very persuasively a real man crucified. All the wounds, all the blood, how it works with the body, with the image of the body, is all a real crucified body. And even more than that, it's crucified in the way that Jesus was crucified, in a way that matches the Gospels, but tells us even more about the crucifixion. So one of those things is a crown of thorns. So you can see from looking at the head that it has wounds that are consistent with something sharp on the head like a crown of thorns. Jesus is the only one in history that is ever referenced to have a crown of thorns. So that is a really good match to Jesus. They think there are 30 to 50 wounds that come not just from the side of the head, but also from the top of the head that are consistent with a crown of thorns. And that's why we look at this type of crown of thorns being consistent, because we see those wounds in the top of the head.
So it's not just going around, it's going all the way like a helmet.
Yes, yes. And I think that's consistent with some of the Jewish crowns that kings would wear, Jewish kings would wear. So I think this is very consistent with both the shroud and with a Jewish king. And Jesus was being mocked as King of the Jews. So we see scourge wounds. So not everyone who was crucified was beaten, but we know from the gospel accounts that Jesus was beaten. So we see wounds across the body that are consistent with scourge marks.
That will be his back.
This is his back, and so there are about 2/3 of what we see there on the back and about 1/3 that's on the front. And those wounds, they count 372 wounds that are consistent with a scourge that had 2 metal balls on the end of a strand and 3 strands. So this is what is consistent with those wounds, and it's also consistent with history and what types of whips Romans used. And that medical people who have looked at this say that that would be a terrible injury, that those wounds are very deep and are clotted, and would be, he would have lost a lot of blood from those wounds. So it would be a very serious injury, not minor. So it's almost sobering. Sometimes we think, well, Pontius Pilate was a good guy. He was trying to keep him from being crucified, so he ordered him beaten, but the beating was brutal. And then, of course, the people still wanted him crucified. So we see that evidence.
So this device would cut the skin, actually? So,
it would.
So he would bleed?
Yes, it would, and it would with a lot of force. So they would be, these aren't long, are they? They're very close. So the soldiers who scourged him would be standing very close and would alternate lashes, many lashes to get those wounds. And then we have the nails. So we see 2 wounds in the shroud. We see one in the hand, and we see one in the foot. And these wounds are very consistent with the size of a Roman nail. So this is about 1 inch in diameter and about 7 inches long. 1 inch in the head and about 7 inches long. And so an interesting thing from the shroud, we see that the nail was in the wrist area on the back side of the wrist, which is different because often we see in crucifix, we see it in the middle of the palm. So doctors think that if it was in the middle of the palm, the body weight would pull through it. And so they think the more reasonable way and the way that the Romans would have nailed it would be either through the meaty part of the palm or the wrist and out the wrist on the back side.
So where is it? I thought it's going to be here because the paintings show here, but it's not correct because it would rip.
It's not here, but it could be here angled. So there is a place in your wrist that if you look at it in an x-ray, there's a channel where there are bones. It's like a circular arrangement of bones, and that would be a good place for this to go through. And so that is one common place that they think the nails may have been put.
Okay.
Yes.
And with the feet?
With the feet. Oh, so the feet, so we see one nail wound here, and the other foot is kind of turned to the side and a little distorted. So you see the nail wound here more toward the front of the foot. So I think that the people who have the most insight to the geometry of it, they think that it was one nail through both feet. So one foot would have been fairly flat, the other foot would have been turned a little, and then the nail would have gone through both feet. Yes. And the last thing is this, that is also very specific to Jesus, is that after death, Jesus spoke his word and then he died. We think that probably means he died from heart failure because asphyxiation is the other possibility, but he spoke a word and he died, so we think his heart probably stopped. And then the other 2 were not dead yet. And so they speared Jesus in the side to make sure that he was dead. And the Gospel of John says that blood and water flowed from the wound. And that's exactly what we see on the shroud. We see blood and we see water, probably more water than blood. Medical experts say that that's exactly what they would expect to see if the wound was after death. So the spear would have gone through to the heart, and there would be some blood that flowed from the heart, but the heart wasn't pumping, so it wasn't a lot of blood. But all the fluid that had built up around the heart and lungs during the crucifixion would also have poured out. So that blood and water that has that beautiful theological divine mercy image for us also helps us see the shroud as a really very good representative picture of Jesus and what happened with that wound.
Great, right.
And of course, all of that we can see on this shroud that gives us a very vague picture of Jesus. So when the first photograph was taken, the community, the whole world was riveted, because that vague picture, if you look at it as a photographic negative, you see the detailed face and body of Jesus. You see those wounds in even greater detail, and you see what looks like a very highly resolved picture that was left for us.
What is the medium of the marks on the shroud? It's not the paint.
No,
it's not the blood.
Blood. It is blood. So the blood, there are two things that make up the image. One of them is blood. So all of these wounds that you see from the scourging, that is blood. And in fact, it's been tested. It has all the components of blood. They've tested that it was AB blood type, which is very consistent. Everything related to Jesus has been tested as AB blood type. The blood here, that's real blood. Not on mine, but on the real shroud. On mine, it's just a photograph, but on the real shroud, it's real blood. The blood that you can see running on the arms, the blood that you can see from the nail wounds, all that is blood. And then the second thing that makes up the image, I just call the image area, and that's what gives those characteristics of the face and the body. And that is what is very mysterious, and what really even science leads us to the resurrection for an explanation of those marks on the cloth.
So it's some kind of energy.
Exactly, some kind of energy. And it's energy that we can look at and see the effect of it and see that it is consistent with energy. We can actually use energy, and we can make a few marks on linen that have that same characteristic, but we can't make it look like Jesus. And that's because if you follow through, it must have been the body that was wrapped in the cloth that marked it. It's only on the inside of the cloth, it's not on the outside. It doesn't have the character of a liquid. It has the character of dehydrating the fibers that were near the body. And so energy from the body is the best explanation, and light energy is the best way that we have ever had a similar mark on the cloth. And it leaves that detailed picture for us that's like nothing in the world and that nobody can reproduce.
It's magnificent.
It is. It is. It is food for our hearts and minds.
So this,
Our hearts and our minds.
they did the carbon testing as far as age, and that didn't work out, or did that?
Right. So they did carbon dating in the 1980s, and that was the biggest blow to people thinking that the shroud was authentic. And in fact, I didn't look at the shroud for many years because I thought the carbon-14 was a good test. Well, lately we know that it wasn't a good test, that actually their own test data showed that they had contamination and didn't have the consistent statistical results that they needed to report what they reported. So they basically, under probably a lot of pressure, reported data that was really not valid. And so since then, there have been additional dating tests, not carbon-14 tests, but tests that are used on linen that measure the tensile strength of the fibers. They measure chemical decomposition in linen and compare it to a lot of linens over time. So all 5 of those tests are consistent with the 1st century, and they are not consistent with 13th, 14th century. So I think at this time, all of the dating tests would lead you toward it being a 1st century cloth.
They also found some kind of flowers on it. Is that true?
They did. So there's 2 things there. They found pollen.
Pollen, right.
For sure. So pollen, the great thing about pollen is it's microscopic and it sticks to things, and it's not easy even to get rid of it. And you can characterize it and see what plants grew in the area to see where it's been. So on the shroud, they found a number of types of pollen, and they take tape and just press it on the cloth and see what's on there and look at it with a microscope. And so the majority of the types of pollen were from Jerusalem. And there were other types that were from Asia Minor and from Europe, but that's where we think the route of the shroud is. So they are consistent with the shroud beginning in Jerusalem and then following a route that led to Europe, where it is now.
There was also a fire, I think, that part of it was destroyed or something.
Yes. So the fire, the evidence of the fire, you can see really clearly here. So these 2 strips, these 2 tracks that are very prominent, that was damage from the fire. So at the time, it was in a church. The church caught fire. The church burned to the ground. 4 men risked their lives to go in and pull out the reliquary box that the shroud was stored in at the time. And by the time they got it out, the box was so hot that molten metal dripped on one corner and caused all this damage. But fortunately, the center where the image is didn't get damaged, only the edges. So we lost a little detail about the shoulders, but we still see the image in the middle.
How is it that you went into this and decided to show it? This is a traveling show.
It is.
So
it is.
How do you do this? How do you?
It is. So I got interested in it when I saw an exhibit by the same people who made this one in Israel, in the Holy Land, and it just spoke to me as being truth, even though I still wondered about the carbon-14 dating. At the time, it wasn't revealed that the carbon-14 dating had those serious problems. So I started studying it, and then as I I realized what a beautiful gift it was for us. I started talking about it. And then ultimately, I'm here with this beautiful exhibit, and I carry it around the country. So I try to get it to as many places as possible, because I know that millions of people think this is the real burial cloth of Jesus. And I think if a million more knew what it was, they would think so too. So I'm trying to show it to as many people as possible.
Perhaps you could contact Our Lady of Częstochowa in Doylestown.
Yes.
Because Polish community is very active. I guess
Yes.
they would love to see this.
Yes.
There's a beautiful church, the whole complex. They have many different events, so
Yes.
that'll be great there, obviously. People
I'll
don't
give you
know
a
about
card,
Yeah.
and you can pass it along.
I'll send you all the information.
Yes.
And I only know about this event because I listen to Catholic radio,
Oh, yes.
1260, so they
Awesome.
advertise it there. But otherwise, I wouldn't know. Alex wouldn't know. I told him.
So the good thing is, the churches that I come to, some of them are really good. So the church here is a group of churches, and they advertised it well and got Catholic radio connected to put that out there, and they tried to get it in as many church bulletins as possible. So I have made contact with a lot of people, and I would love to come back to this area with it. So.
You're making it negative, right?
I am.
That's
Yeah.
what's happening right now.
So even photos of the shroud have that photographic negative effect. So if you look at the shroud or a photo of the shroud, you can see that detailed view. Similar to the tomb that's in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, that's like a replica that's built above where we think the real tomb is. So it has a section in the back where the body would be laid, and then this would be where mourners would gather, and where if it was a family tomb, you would have bones of ancestors. And then this is, so all this would be behind rock. And then this is the outside entrance. So the stone would have been here, rolled away, and this is where John and Peter would have come. John would have waited here while Peter went in to check out the body, or the lack of the body.
Wasn't Maria Magdalena first?
She was there, right. She was there and came here, and the stone was rolled away, and she thought the body had been stolen. So I don't think she went into the tomb.
It was only one person. It was the tomb was only for one person.
It was probably, so what they did was when a family member died, they would have them here, and then when after they had deteriorated, they would store their bones.
So they break the bones, they put it in the box.
Mm-hmm. Or a vase or a shelf.
Yeah, they found those boxes. Supposedly, Jesus' brother, John or something.
I'm not familiar with that. I'll have to look that up. Awesome. But yeah, I know that they do in family tombs. They would store them there.